I just want to be real for a second. Most people don't realize taking your money and financial education seriously has the power to change your life. Do you want to travel or look more attractive or potentially attract a partner or even just buy your dream house? For all of these things, you need money. And for your money to work for you, you need a system. This is where I come in. This particular approach and system has helped me add $50,000 to my investment portfolio. I've tried it all when it comes to budgeting, and eventually I just gave up because either it's too much admin or I actually don't know what the purpose of it is, and it's just a task I keep on procrastinating until I just eventually don't do it anymore. But I've tried banking apps, I've tried zero-based budgeting apps, manual pen and paper, and also Excel spreadsheets. I'm happy to report that I finally found something that worked for me, so I'm actually going to show you the exact system that I use. If you don't have a plan and you haven't built up the discipline, then you're very likely just going to get onto the hamster wheel of getting money in and it goes out, getting money in and it goes out. Let me show you how. The first step is really just to set up goals for your monthly cash flows. So I have a sheet where I track exactly how much I'm expecting to get in and also how much tax I'm expected to pay on that money, because I'm a business owner. The income that I pay myself is basically a salary that I still need to get taxed on, because there are obviously a little bit more complications behind that that I don't want to get in now. But once I've allocated money to myself, I need to also put money aside for the tax that I'm still going to pay on that. Many of you get paid and tax is already deducted, so it makes it a little bit easier for you. But I also then plan on a fixed cost basis. So if you'll see here on a fixed cost basis, I plan how much money is going towards fixed costs for at least 6 months in advance. Also variable costs, as you'll see here. And then for debt, saving, and investing, I plan how much money is going towards each. You'll see I've put these investing amounts in here. And this is really because at this moment, I don't want to take too much money out of my business in order to put into my stock market portfolio. But I still try to at least put some money in there. And these amounts are all in dollars, by the way. The thing is, when my business has a great month and I know at least I have like 6 months of cash flow built up, then I'll put extra money into my investment portfolio on a bulk basis, but I don't want to commit too much on a monthly basis and then put strain on my cash flow of my business. So that's just some side note that you might find interesting. Then this summary shows me how much money, remember this is all just still planning, right? This summary shows me how much money is coming in and then how much money is going out and what is left. So the plan here really is not actually to have any money left, because as soon as there is money left here, it could potentially be allocated to one of these buckets, like the investing bucket. The important part, this shows me the breakdown of the expenses based on fixed, variable, then debt, save, and invest as well. So you'll see here, the plan breakdown is 47%. I try to keep my fixed costs under 50%. 36% to variable costs, and then 4% towards saving and 8% towards investing. Ideally, I want to get the saving and investing portion up to 20% or even more. But I've just explained to you now that given I'm a business owner now, I don't have the luxury of consistent corporate cash flows like I did before. So I'm just a little bit more conservative on this. I feel like I'm still investing. I might not be investing as much money in my investment portfolio, but I'm investing it into my business, into my personal brand. And obviously from that, I also expect to get growth and future cash flows. So it's a different way of investing. It's just not in the stock market. Okay, so what does a typical month then look like? On my money system, I will then go to the month, and this luckily automatically populates. So I'll be using this sheet. As you'll see, there is actually a summary on the side here that shows me money coming in, money going out, and what's left to spend. So on this, I will say, let's say this is $5,500 earned, and it automatically populates the tax I'm expected to pay, because there is a tax estimate tab, which allows you to put in the percentage of tax that you expect to pay on your income. And then it will automatically take that into account, which makes it a little bit easier. Of course, these are still estimates because your actual tax rates will be based on how much money you actually earn for the tax year. And the best thing that you really can do is to take an estimate of what your tax rate would be given your expected income for the tax year. Then on the money outside, What's easy about the money out is for fixed costs, you would really expect this to look, you would with quite a lot of certainty be able to predict your fixed costs. So I'm just going to say, with all of these fixed costs that we planned, these are all going to be aligned with what I expected. And then I don't have any debt. And on the saving side, I'm going to get to saving spots in a while, but I am basically going to put 150 towards our New York trip that's coming up, and also 50 towards a Christmas trip that we're planning, but that's going to be local, so it's not going to be as expensive. And what's great about this variable expense tracker, so these are the variable costs that I expect to have, that I actually have within a month. And what's nice about this is you can literally just open it on your phone. As soon as you pay for something, you can put it in. And it's especially nice if you've got a household or you're more than one person in this budget. This is just my personal half of our household budget, by the way. This is not both of us, because I didn't want to expose all of my husband's stuff in my YouTube videos. I don't think that's fair. So if this is just like my half that I'm doing for this video specifically. But when I would, let's say, for example, spend 200 on groceries, then it would automatically populate the money spent on groceries here. So every time I go and I buy groceries, I would add it here. And what's nice about this is I've now set my expected spend on groceries for 450. And this allows me to track, am I getting close to how much I expected to spend, and what is the difference? Remember, we set these goals in the first step. So this is really just a way to make sure that you're keeping, or that you're in alignment with the goal that you set earlier. Then let's say you're going over and you spend 150 on groceries, then another 150, then your total spend on groceries will, automatically calculate here, and then it will tell you you've basically overspent on groceries. And then you would need to make it up in other categories like entertainment or gifts or eating out, for example, spend less. At the time that I recorded this video, this month hasn't ended yet. So I actually am going to show you a completed month so that you have a good idea of what that looked like. So here's a completed month tracking the costs spent or the expenses. And then it automatically shows me how much money I overspent for each of these items. You'll see that I actually didn't buy any clothes in this month, which was a win. But there are certain areas that I overspent on. And this will then automatically pull through to the left-hand side. By the way, all the fixed costs was predetermined, so that's quite easy to keep track of. And I also put my money towards my saving spots in this month. Then this will then show me the money in, money out, and what's left. So I know that for this month, there was 40 excess actually. And also give me a little summary here, as well as a breakdown of my fixed costs, my variable costs, and how much I saved and invested. So this is actually quite great to have an overview of the month, how much came in, how much came out, and also to see where I've overspent. So the most important concept in the second step is to pay yourself first, and to take your money that you're receiving in first, put that money towards your investments and your saving spots. Because if you're just going to spend and then at the end of the month hope there's something left to invest, that's a very easy way to not invest anything, because you're always going to be tempted to use that money. As soon as your salary comes in, and this is really the way that I was able to add a significant amount of money to my investment portfolio. As soon as the money came in, I had that debit order go off into my investment portfolio. And that meant I was never tempted to touch or spend that money, because it directly went into my investment portfolio. So this is the most important thing, is once you start completing your month's tracker, then you need to first start with your investments amount. So scroll down to your investment amount and say, this is the amount that I'm adding to my brokerage account because this is what I planned to put away. And then your fixed amounts have obviously been planned. So that's basically just leaves you with tracking your variable costs and making sure that they are within the parameters that you've set for yourself. By the way, if you think this system would be helpful to you, I'm actually making it available. You can follow the link in the description if you're interested in using it too. I'm also adding guidance videos so that you can understand exactly how it works and to set yourself up for success. So I briefly touched on the saving spots, but let me explain to you how I think and how I use saving pots. So first of all, there is actually a setup tab in my system, which I didn't show to you, but you'll be able to set up your different saving spots here and also your different investments. So in my case, I have a saving spot for my New York City trip that we're having in 3 months' time, and also a Christmas trip. And I'm basically in the saving spot tab, I've got what the goal amount is, how much am I planning to put towards this saving spot, and also where I am currently. And then in the goals tab that I showed you before, I already showed you how much I'm planning to put towards each of these pots every month. So this tab is really a nice way to keep track of how much I'm adding to each of these pots. So in all of these months, these are the amounts I added, and also the same for the Christmas trip. So very importantly is once you have set up and you're thinking in a savings pot system, then you're making up savings pots for different purposes. This is usually shorter term goals. So also something that you would not invest in the stock market, but rather money that you would hold in a savings account that earns you high interest. So for example, let's say you're planning to buy a house in 2 to 3 years from now, and you're saving towards a house deposit. That would also fall under a savings pot. And this is because you're not going to be investing that money in the stock market. That's because it's a short-term thing. You don't want to expose it to the volatility of the stock market if it's not a longer timeline. So if it's a house deposit, it will fall under your savings spot. You would put money towards that every month. And then when you use that money, it's quite easy. You'll just allocate it in the savings spot tab over here. For example, if I use money for my New York City trip, then I would just say I'm using 1,000 here. So it will show me I put 1,050 in, I'm using 1,000, and this tracker over here will then automatically show me your goal is 2,000, you started with 1,000, this is how much you saved, this is how much you used, and this is how much you have left. So very important is obviously not during your monthly cash flows to put the money that you're using from your savings spot allocations into your monthly cash flows. And one last thing to mention here is that it's so important to have goals so that you actually understand how much money do you need to put towards something, and also how much do you plan on spending, so that you really have some kind of benchmark that you've set for yourself. Is I don't want to go over this amount. And in this case, our New York City trip, this is actually only going to be my allocated spending money because our flights and accommodation has already been booked. So this is really just how much money I plan to spend there. You might be thinking that's not enough money, but now you understand why. So before we get to how I actually force myself to complete this every month, I just quickly wanted to show you there's a category overview that actually summarizes for the months that I've completed, how much money I spent in each of these fixed categories and also in each of these variable categories. So that's quite nice and really helps you to see how much money you're putting towards what. And I also have a yearly overview, which shows me how much money I expected to get, how much I actually got, and also with fixed costs, how much money I expected to spend, how much I actually spent. And this is really just a nice way to see with each of these categories how I compare to my expected amounts, basically how accurate my goal setting was. And this chart over here helps me look at how much money I spend in different categories. So the fixed percentage or allocation, ideally you want to get under 50%. And also for the variable spending, ideally actually have that below 30%. So I'm not there yet. But once I have that below 30%, I'll also be able to get my investments and my saving amounts up to 20%. So that's the goal. So now in terms of how I get myself to do this, I actually have a blocker in my calendar, and I added something to the system here so that you're able to keep track too. You'll see it's a new tab, so I haven't completed it yet because it's a new thing that I added to have this available for you too. But this is basically a way now to keep track of, I want to do a monthly check-in. I want to have my investment contribution goal reached and also keep my variable spending in the range. You'll obviously be able to edit this if you decide to use the system in terms of be a little bit more specific to say, I want to keep my variable spending under 30%, for example. And then you would be able to tick these goals off as you complete them. So it would be great if all of your circles become blue. And to also make it easy for you, there's a link included that you can literally just click on and then add this to your Google Calendar so that you have a reminder once a month to check in on your budget, to check in on your spending, and to see whether your spending is in line with what you expected. So before I get to the most important part of having a good money system that works for you, I want to remind you that you can also use the tool for yourself. If you think this will be helpful to you, follow the link in my description. And this is the first time actually that I'm releasing this tool. I really hope that it is something beneficial to you. The most important part of setting goals or having a budget or having a money system, and this really doesn't matter whether you're using a banking app or whether you're using a different budget template or whatever you're using, is to actually reflect. And this is where I find it lacking even when I had my spending tracked in my banking or my budgeting apps. It doesn't help you or force you to reflect on it. Where if you're doing it in this way, you're spending 10 to 15 minutes a month to check in on your spending, to check in on your goals, and to actually reflect. And this is the only way that you can change your behavior. Because if you're not even realizing how much money is going towards certain categories or how much money you're putting into clothes or into eating out, these amounts quickly creep up and they become really significant over time. And it's so easy to think, oh, it's just a once off, I'm just going to treat myself. But you don't realize how much it means or how significant it becomes over the long term. So I think having a way that you're almost forcing yourself to reflect, to look at the numbers, to see what the difference is compared to what you expected. So you've got your money, you're putting it towards certain buckets, and then what does it actually end up looking like by the end of the month? And then you're like, I actually overspent so much on clothes or on eating out. And this is the only way that you'll force yourself to make changes in your behavior in the next month. Whatever you decide to use, the reflection part is really important. So I'll actually encourage you, if you decide to use this system, to use the Streak Builder tab where you can set different goals for yourself and use this to encourage yourself to check in monthly so that you can tick these circles off and get some satisfaction, hopefully, by doing that. You don't have to love budgeting, and honestly, I still don't. But you need a system and you need goals in place. If you don't, you are really just going to continue living month to month and you're not going to force yourself to put money towards your investments. If you are a budget master and you think there are additional tips that you would like to share, or if you figured something out along the way that really works for you, please would share that in the comments, because I really think that we can learn a lot from each other, especially when it comes to something like this, where it's usually a little bit of a dreaded task, but at least for me, setting goals has really been a hack. So it gives me a lot of satisfaction if I can meet my goals on a monthly basis. But if there are other hacks or tips that you have, please share them in the comments. And I really think it would be helpful for others to see. See you next time.